So it's been a little while since I talked about Borderlands, and you guys can check out all of my Borderlands content on the YouTube channel. I have covered Borderlands for quite some time, and I obviously want to talk about this franchise. You know, as a whole, guys, Borderlands is so unique in a number of ways, and it's a franchise I definitely want to see continue into the future. But I gotta be honest, I am concerned about Borderlands 4 or whatever the next upcoming title would be in this franchise. Not so much from a sales perspective, but seeing such a drop off in the player base, and obviously with the competition that's coming in a rapid rate. Every single day, it's almost like we're hearing about new games coming out that are going to try to take, some of those fans away from certain games to play, the current stuff that's coming out, right? And Borderlands has a very solid fan base, to say the least, but that still doesn't get around the fact that there is a big drop in the player count as far as Borderlands 3 in particular is what we're talking about here. So let's talk about it. I'd love to hear you guys' thoughts about this in the comment section down below. So what is it about Borderlands that is, in my opinion, really, where is it starting to slightly fail the fan base? Well, here's what I'm going to say. When we talk about the sales, guys, so according to the Wikipedia page, so according to publisher 2K, Borderlands 3 shipped more than 5 million copies in 5 days from release. I'd say that's pretty good. I mean, that's pretty remarkable, honestly. In addition, the sales of the Microsoft Windows version in this time were the highest for any 2K title to date, and more than 70% of all purchases were made through digital distribution. With these sales, the total Borderlands franchise has made more than $1 billion in revenue. The game had sold more than 8 million copies by the end of 2019, according to Take-Two. Absolutely awesome. Now, let's kind of back up here. When we think of the Borderlands franchise as a whole, so you had the first Borderlands come out in 2009. We had to wait a few years for Borderlands 2, and then obviously a couple years after that for the pre-sequel. And then, of course, that was from 2014, and then we got Borderlands 3 in 2019. Now you had the Tales from the Borderlands as well as the Handsome Collection, but you still had to wait quite a bit for Borderlands 3. Now, when it came out, the reception was pretty, good at first, but then came the problems. So when I talk about problems, guys, a lot of it has to do with just what feels like a lack of innovation. Sure, they have, so much within the Borderlands franchise has been based upon, obviously having so many different ways to customize your weapons and having attachments and just all kinds of, things of that nature. And that's awesome. But I feel like it started to kind of where other areas were starting to lack, whether we're talking multiplayer, whether we're talking about the story itself. The story of Borderlands 3, in my opinion, was pretty lackluster versus some of the other titles. Now, obviously, the sales of Borderlands 3 were great, but I think what ended up happening was that Borderlands 3 started off so good because there was so much hype built around it, and then it's kind of come back down to earth in a major way. And so my concern is more, what about Borderlands 4? What about the future of the franchise? Obviously, we haven't got an announcement of it. Gearbox is not really talking much about what the future of Borderlands is going to be. They kind of have stated that they want to stick with Borderlands 3 for the long haul, which I think is a good thing because they want to make sure that they refine and make everything as good as possible with Borderlands 3. But where does that leave us for the future? I mean, you sell the most out of any Borderlands title, yet your player base drops off significantly. You're getting a lot of, criticism based around the lack of innovation, the storytelling. You had a ton of technical issues as well. Sure, a lot of those things can be fixed with time, but is Gearbox kind of telling us something when they say, hey, we're not going to be really working on much other Borderlands stuff outside of Borderlands 3 for the foreseeable future? Does that tell you that they're moving on after Borderlands 3 to another, maybe a brand new title, brand new IP? I think Borderlands needs to continue, not just as a trilogy, but I just think it needs to continue in the long run. Having a single player story is fantastic. Having multiplayer brings people back to the game, and having co-op is going to keep you playing with your friends. So having a full package, I think, is so important for Borderlands 4 whenever that game comes. Because in my mind, even though I'm concerned that it may never happen, the thing in my mind that's leading me to believe that we will at least get one more Borderlands title is because of the sales. I mean, the sales were spectacular, absolutely like mind-blowing. I never thought that it would sell, 5 million copies in 5 days. That just shows you how far Borderlands has come. But when you're having issues, a lot of people are going to jump ship. And then when you start hearing that they don't know what that future of Borderlands is going to be, a lot of other people are going to start kind of wondering in their mind, hey, maybe I need to check out some new games or something of that nature. So I just, for the sake of Borderlands and for the fan base and the franchise as a whole, I really hope we get a Borderlands 4. But that's where I get a little bit concerned, is when you see those drop-offs, when you see where it started to where it is now, it's concerning. It's just concerning for me. I want to hear from you guys. Are you guys concerned about the future of Borderlands, even though it had great sales? I mean, absolutely phenomenal sales. But it had those big issues, right? The storytelling, the technical issues. I mean, the innovation, they just kind of lacked a lot of innovation as well in this one, even though, a lot of ways you can customize with what we expect out of a looter shooter. But there needs to be more, right? In order for them to continue this franchise. Or is the sales enough? Because at the end of the day, it really just comes down to the dollar amount that they made. And 2K probably already wants to greenlight another title. Gearbox is saying they want to stick with Borderlands 3 for the foreseeable future. So what does that mean for the franchise? Let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below. And for more Borderlands 4 content and videos, stay here with Zero TV.